day everyone, and welcome to our study Cherished. We are studying the women in the Bible, and today we are going to study one of the other nameless women that met Jesus and who Jesus performed a miracle for. And she is just simply known as the woman with bleeding. You can read her story in all of the Gospels except for John. And you'll see in your study notes this week exactly where those references are. But for me, the woman with bleeding story is very near and dear to my heart. I think it's something every woman can relate to because it's something all of us go through, and that is our monthly cycle. We all go through menstruation or have our period once a month. And in the Bible, God gave very specific instructions for women who were in their monthly cycle. In fact, God gave in Leviticus 15, he gave the regulations, and he said that a woman who has her monthly discharge would be considered unclean for those 7 days that she has her discharge, whether she is still having her period or not. And then for another 7 days after that, she would still be deemed unclean, and she would have to remain separated from the rest of Israel. Now this practice while the Israelites were wandering through the wilderness was practiced in such a way that they set up a special tent where all the women who would be having their monthly menstruation would go to and live in this tent for 2 weeks. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know if I would, if it would be fun in that tent or whether it would be a little bit difficult in that tent. We all know what kind of hormones and emotions and emotional roller coasters we are, how frail we are when we have our monthly period. Who knows, it might have been a great 2 weeks where women were able to just sit together and eat ice cream and chat away the whole day. But either way, women had to be separated from their families and from everyone for 2 weeks while they had their monthly cycle. Obviously later on, the isolation that they had to go through, or the separation, would be in their homes. And I was thinking as I was reading this, it was probably pretty much like if you were living during the COVID pandemic and you were diagnosed or you tested positive for COVID, you would have to isolate yourself from loved ones, and any surface you touched would have to be sanitized, and essentially we would deem it unclean until someone has cleaned it. Now, if you can imagine this woman with bleeding, she had been living isolated for 12 years. She basically had her period non-stop for 12 years. Let that sink in for a minute. 12 years of separation, 12 years of isolation, 12 years of being called little else but unclean. Everything she touched would be deemed unclean. Every place that she sat would be deemed unclean. This woman probably did not live with her family because it would just be easier to live on her own. In fact, the Bible tells us she was so desperate that she had spent everything that she had on physicians to try and get better. But I think it's the Gospel of Luke, I think it's Mark, that says even after she spent all her money, she seemed to just get worse rather than better. And then she met Jesus. And she didn't meet him face to face. She didn't have the courage. Can you imagine a woman who would be known as unclean? She probably separated a crowd when they noticed her coming. So this one day she cloaked herself and tried to push through the crowd unnoticed. A lot of commentators say she probably crawled through the crowd so that nobody would see or recognize her. And she thought to herself, if I can just touch the hem of his garment. Now the hem of the garment of Jesus he would have been wearing a prayer shawl that the rabbis wore in those days. And the prayer shawl would have these tassels at the ends. And the chances are that she just touched one of those tassels on his prayer shawl. And she was instantly healed. I want to encourage you to now go do your study and go see what this woman encountered when Jesus turned around and faced her. And I pray it will bless you and that you would have a renewed sense of the love and the power of Jesus to heal, not just partially but wholly, completely, to bring complete healing and restoration. Enjoy your study this week. Until next time.